Andreas Themistocles Goldwyn is a famed historian and writer known for his many findings on ancient civilizations such as the Parthian Empire. Born to a rich family of former nobles, Andreas had a cushy childhood, being privately educated, and given all of his opportunities on a silver platter. At university, he became friends with many people, but his two closest associates were Vincent Gray, a scientist with an interest in the history of medicine, and a fellow archaeologist named Douglas Howard. However, Andreas did work to make his name. Despite his prestigious university degree in ancient and modern history, he insisted on working his way up the proverbial cursus honorum of the archaeological world, starting as an assistant on a dig in Iran. Meanwhile, Douglas Howard used his dissertation to write his first book, becoming a well-paid writer for the historical journal called Pythias. Andreas published his first book, titled The Conflict, in the year 1954. It detailed the many battles between the Roman and Parthian empires from the perspective of the latter. Over the next 20 years, Andreas would continue working in archaeology, insisting on taking part in the manual labor of digs himself, harking back to his days as an assistant. He would release 4 further books, as well as a fiction novel set during the early Achaemenid period, as a sort of parallel to the classic Athenian stage play, Aeschylus' Persians. In the year 1974, hearing about it from Pythias, Andreas, now aged 49, would go on his last dig, in a mountain pass in the Pyrenees, trying to find evidence of a legendary Carthaginian settlement. He was met at the base of the mountain range by none other than Douglas Howard, on behalf of the Pythias Journal, and Vincent Gray, now an eccentric millionaire who traveled to Spain on a whim. The trio began climbing the mountain, following the pathways in the side of the ridge, with Gray leading, Goldwyn in the middle, keeping an eye on the stability of the mountain passes, and Howard at the back managing supplies and equipment. They reached the north face of Aneto, when the mountain began to shake, snow began tumbling down to the side of them. Gray led the trio into a cave, where they waited for the avalanche to subside. An hour passed, and the shaking stopped. Gray and Goldwyn tunneled their way out of the snow which had closed off the cavern. They began their trek back up the ridge, but as Howard left the cave, the snow-covered ridge collapsed beneath his feet. Goldwyn tried to catch him, and grabbed onto his wrist. Unfortunately, Howard's wrist slipped from his grasp, and Howard fell into the ravine below. Goldwyn slipped from the ridge, and landed on a slab of rock a few feet down, breaking his leg. Gray climbed down, and dragged Goldwyn into the cave they had just come from, as he rummaged through his bag, finding a small amount of food for Goldwyn. He descended the mountain, and brought in the rangers to airlift Goldwyn to safety. Both vowed never to go mountain climbing again, and neither the legendary settlement, nor Howard, were ever found. The year is now 1986, and after nearly a decade void of communication, Andreas received a handwritten letter from Lord Vincent Gray. It stated plainly that Andreas' old friend was dying, and that he wanted one last chance to make everything right between them before he shuffled off this mortal coil. Reluctantly, still hurting from Howard's death, now in his 60s, Andreas set out for Mason Manor, located on the idyllic Lopunt Island, just south of Falmouth, to see his old friend one last time.